Welcome to Project Catalyst, an economic development podcast. I'm Tina Emerson, Chief Marketing Officer at Maynard Nexsen, and I'm joined today by Tom Brinkley, a shareholder in our Economic Development Practice Group based in our Birmingham, Alabama office. Good to see you again, Tom.
Good to see you too, Tina. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, in less than 10 episodes, we've been fortunate to be joined on Project Catalyst by many of the leaders in economic development across the Southeast. Today, we are honored to be joined by Alabama Secretary of Commerce, Ellen McNair. Ellen McNair was appointed to lead the Alabama Department of Commerce on January 1st by Governor Kay Ivey. Prior to joining Commerce, she served as the Chief Economic Development Officer for the Montgomery Area Chamber of Commerce. While at the Chamber, she successfully located 600 national and international projects with a combined capital investment exceeding $8 billion, creating almost 30,000 new jobs for the community. And during her tenure, the Montgomery Chamber Corporate Development Division was named one of the top 20 economic development organizations in the U.S. by Site Selection magazine 4 times. The Secretary and Department of Commerce have been longstanding friends of Maynard Nexsen. We are glad to have you join us today. So thank you for being here, Madam Secretary.
Oh, it is certainly an honor. Thank you for inviting me.
So, Secretary McNair, thank you so much for being with us today. I know that this has been a big transition for you. You've run one of the best economic development organizations in Montgomery for a long, long time. And we're super excited in the economic development world to have you in your current position. You bring a lot of energy. You bring, you're highly organized and you're detailed. And we're certainly excited about all that it's in store for Alabama. Tell us a little bit about the transition for you. You know, you were in Montgomery for a long time. You got to see a lot of major projects, land a lot of major projects, but now you're at the state level. Tell us a little bit about that transition, just kind of in a big picture sense, what you've done with your team and how you've approached things a little bit differently now at the state level.
Sure. So it's been a full 3 months now that I've served in this position. And I am so honored to have the opportunity to lead this amazing team at Commerce. Secretary Canfield, I cannot thank him enough for the incredible group of leaders that he had put together here at Commerce, and every time I see him, I really do praise him for collecting a group of amazing folks that are working here at Commerce. So it makes the transition so much easier for me when you have folks in these positions who are very professional and do their job very well. I've actually been at Commerce 2 other times in my career. So I actually began my career many years ago as a commerce project manager. So it had that statewide perspective, was hired to the chamber many years ago and worked for the chamber, and then was hired back to Commerce as research director. So I then left the commerce position as research director and was hired back to lead the economic development division at the chamber, where I have been for more years than I want to admit to, but was an amazing tenure with a group of truly professional folks at the Montgomery Chamber. So having both of those perspectives, I think it's such a critical advantage for me, because you really do understand the statewide perspective, but having that local economic development experience really allows you to see how commerce can work in the very best way to be the very best partner. The rubber, and Tom, you know this, the rubber really meets the road at the local level. That is where the blocking, the tackling, the really detailed work of economic development is done, is at that local level. So a company will move to a community, while the state plays a very important role, especially as a role with training and workforce and having an environment that is welcoming to industry, the real location is done at that local level. So that's where the product has to be. That's where the relationships have to be. And so having that experience, I think that I can assist commerce in being a very strong partner to those local, because I understand the opportunities and the challenges they're facing and how we can bring resources and support to those local economic development organizations. So I think it's a a great background to have to be able to serve those local level organizations.
And that's a great segue to my next question. We were talking earlier, and you very humbly said that it takes a real team effort to bring in these projects, and you've been a part of a lot of great ones. Can you talk a little bit more about how you work with regional and local economic development groups when you have someone that's got great interest in a particular area of the state?
Right. So it takes so very many people to do their job very, very well. And I can say at the local level, especially, so you've got, a site that has to be developed. So you've got infrastructure that has to be in place. You've got work that has to be done on that product itself. And that can sometimes take months, if not years, to get a site prepared. So in that process, you've got utility providers, you've got working with your local city and state road access, transportation partners, and all the utility partners, of course, to develop that site. And then once you have a site developed, then to market that site to an industry that has certain requirements. And sometimes those requirements are very demanding and they are very, critical to the successful location. So again, you're bringing those transportation, those utility partners back to the table to be able to answer questions and to meet the requirements of the company. Beyond that, you've got city officials, county officials, state officials that all, bring incentive and regulatory assistance to a project. So on a project that I've recently been working, one utility partner had over 50 people. Just one partner had 50 people engaged in this one particular project. So it is absolutely positively a team, and it is absolutely very important that that team have relationships far before a project comes to town. So you've got to know those partners. You've got to have worked and have the trust of those partners. And at the state level, it's the same way. So while we're not necessarily engaged in the nuts and bolts of developing the product, you are absolutely a partner in assisting with resources with them and bringing all the different entities with the state, whether it's the governor's office, the legislature with incentive packages and support that they bring, the Department of Revenue, the Alabama Department of Transportation, Environmental Management. I mean, there are just so many folks that have to come together and, again, do their job very well. The best team will win. I mean, it is, if you have a weak link somewhere in there, it will be exposed. So having a team you can count on, that you've worked with in the past, that you trust and that they trust you, that's absolutely the secret sauce. I mean, you say, what makes an economic development program great? It is teamwork, without a doubt. So no one person, no one entity, can take credit. It truly is a team.
I agree with you 100%. So stepping back for a minute at the state level, tell us a little bit about some of the states that Alabama competes with typically. And I'd also like to learn a little bit more about, everybody's often wondering, what's the next frontier in economic development? Give us a little insight about what you all are seeing in terms of sectors or types of companies that Alabama is seeing grow and you are competing with day to day right now.
Right. So, typically we will compete with the traditional southeastern states. When a major project is looking, a lot of times it will be, in a geographical region of the country like the Southeast. I have competed in the past on, national projects, but typically I would say the majority of the projects that we compete with are going to be with Southeastern states. It's interesting you ask about the sectors. The one thing that Governor Ivey asked me to do as I accepted this position and came into this position in January 2nd was to create a strategic plan for our state. So the last strategic plan was done in 2012. It was updated in 2016. The world has changed. The world has significantly changed since 2016. So in the past 3 months, we have put together a very robust plan to develop the strategic plan, a plan to get the plan done because, creating a economic development plan for our state is a major undertaking. So I brought together a team of I kind of call it a kitchen cabinet, a group of folks that could quickly and very thoughtfully help put together the plan that I presented to Governor Ivey the end of March. That group involved the Economic Development Partnership of Alabama, of course, the Department of Commerce team, and also the state Department of Finance Director, Bill Poole, who recently just led the effort on the Innovate Alabama program. He had gone through a very, very stringent strategic plan and developed Innovate Alabama. And the governor asked that we include Innovate Alabama as part of our strategic plan. So having Director Poole, who is also chairman of Innovate Alabama, a part of our team was incredibly helpful. And then Dr. David Bronner and the team at RSA. They bring a tremendous amount of resources to this effort. Their economic development impact in the state cannot be overrated. And he is a visionary, but he gets things done. And the resources that they can bring on almost any sector that you can imagine, as they invest tens of billions of dollars with the state employees funds and the teachers retirement funds. Obviously, it's been very successful. So the resources that entity brings to this process, again, I think is impactful. So that particular group, we developed a strategy of how we were going to approach developing the economic development strategy. We did a group of RFPs, requests for proposals, to consultants on three different levels. So first was the quantitative piece to really dive into the sectors. That's the data. A team, we're looking for a team that can help us predict the future, really. I mean, looking at these sectors, I think the sectors that Alabama currently is, focusing on, I think we're maybe 85% there. I don't think they're going to change dramatically, but really what will change is the opportunities and, quite frankly, the challenges within those sectors, because, this state produces over 1.5 million ICE internal combustion engines a year. And there may be some challenges with that. So we've got to look at what the opportunities in these sectors are and what the challenges would be. The second RFP that we developed was a qualitative piece. There are so many folks in our state that really are impactful for economic development, as we talked about, the sheer numbers of folks that are involved in this process, and they all need a voice in this plan. So we developed a request for proposal to have a qualitative piece, to go out and to reach out to all the folks around the state who really need a voice, and we need a way to collect that information and to bring it into the strategy. So that was the second request for proposal we did. And the third request will be a little later in the process, but that will help us implement this strategic plan. So as the strategic plan gets developed, it's important that we have a team that will be ready and will be capable to implement this. So they will help not only Commerce evaluate our structure and the way our team is established, but also look at our partners, whether it's the Business Council of Alabama, EDPA, the Economic Development Association of Alabama, all of our different partners. And again, will have no impact on their governance, of course, but maybe help us align who does what, so we don't have gaps in our effort, and we don't have any kind of overlapping effort, that we're each have a function in this, and that we work together to make sure that we're working hand in hand and down the same path. So those are the three parts of this, and we presented the plan for a plan, so to speak, to the governor last week, and got full steam ahead. So within the next week or two, you will see a press release from the governor announcing who has been selected for this process, and we'll kick off and go with a hopeful date to have all of it put together by October 1st. So it'll be a challenging summer.
That's a tremendous amount to have gotten done in 3 months in the office, and very, very exciting. And I think that sounds like it's timely, and it'll help us meet our next frontier, right?
Absolutely.
So you touched on the Alabama legislature a little bit, and without getting into that too much, I know there's a lot more involvement in the legislature in the economic development world right now, but tell us what some of the tools the Alabama legislature has given you that you're excited about in a nutshell.
Well, obviously last year with the game plan and allowing us to have these very competitive economic development incentives for several more years, we take that very seriously. We take the opportunity that we have to recruit industry and provide these incentives. We do not do that lightly. Last year, there was 184 announcements in the state, industrial announcements that brought in over $6.5 billion of capital investment to the state. And of those 184 projects, only 23 were offered and accepted the Growing Alabama incentive. So from the start of this program back in 2015, I believe 2015, we have had over 2,700 announcements, and only 223 have used the Growing Alabama. So again, for the legislature, for the people of Alabama, we use these very wisely. And they're not just thrown about. These incentives are thoughtfully and very, must have a return on investment to the state. So, I can tell you, we will be extremely, we'll be reviewing these and using these tools very wisely.
And Madam Secretary, we just have a couple of minutes left, but I do want to ask, are there any new initiatives that you're particularly excited about in economic development as you've made this transition from Montgomery to this larger statewide role? What is really has a fire in your belly for the next steps for Alabama?
I think one of the biggest changes that we look to make, and something that I'm very excited about, is the Alabama Growth Alliance. We have a bill in the legislature right now that we are very excited to really provide a public-private team that will come together to allow us to implement this strategic plan. At the local level, we always would have, in any strategic plan we would develop, we would have the leadership, the elected leadership, the mayor, the county commission, and of course the professional economic development team. But we also had the private sector leaders that led this community and that were so instrumental in the success of a community, also at the table with us. And their insight, their engagement in this process was just critical. And there was really no structure for that at the state level. So through the Alabama Growth Alliance, this will bring together private sector and public sector to help us align and to help us accomplish the success that we hope this new strategic plan will accomplish. They will not have impact over any of the governance. Commerce will, still remain under the governor and under her control. And obviously BCA with their board and EDPA and all the other statewide economic development agencies will be governed by their boards and by their leadership. But it brings us all together. And I think that it'll be a great resource to hold us accountable in a very positive, I say that as a very positive thing, that we are all working together and that we have resources now that, with this new Alabama Growth Alliance that maybe we don't have right now, that we can reach out to our private sector, allies and have them help us in a very meaningful way. So I'm very excited about the Growth Alliance, and we hope to be able to bringing that on board in October when we bring the strategic plan on board.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us today. Your experience and enthusiasm for the area is infectious. I'm excited to see what's next. We're thrilled to be working with you, your partners. So thank you very much for joining us today. I know you've got a lot on your plate, so you taking the time to be with us today is an honor. So thank you very much.
Well, it's been an honor to work with Tom and his team for many, many years. We've worked a lot of projects together, so I look forward to continuing that trend. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. And I cannot overstate how excited the economic development community is in Alabama to have you in your current position. So from top to bottom, everybody's thrilled, and we appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
We will see you next time on Project Catalyst. Project Catalyst, an economic development podcast, is a Maynard-Nexsen and NP Strategy production. To learn more about the podcast and subscribe, visit thecatalystpod.com or find us on your favorite podcast platform.